In this lesson, we learned how to use the data analysis tool and statistical functions to compute a battery of descriptive statistics describing the central tendency, spread, and shape of the distribution. This lesson assumes that the data encompasses the entire population of interest and not just a sample. If you're trying to find out the summary statistics, which are based on just a sample, then you should use the previous lesson, lesson 3, which was summary statistics. However, in this case, we have the entire population. I'll use data like we used last time. I have dates from December 1st going down to December 16th. And this time I only have the data for Tina. And this is the number of episodes that occurred on each of these days. December 1st, she had 0 episodes. December 2nd, she had 1. December 3rd, she had 1. December 4th, she had 2, etc. So this column is the number of episodes that Tina has. Now, if I just want to describe her behavior on, or the number of episodes on these days, without inferring what that means to her today, or on December 17th, or any other day, I'm just trying to describe this data, then I'll use descriptive statistics. One way of doing that is to do it pretty much the same way we did it last time. We'll go up to Data, or I'm sorry, we'll go to Tools. We'll go down to the bottom of our menu to Data Analysis. So we click on Data Analysis. We should go to Descriptive Statistics. So it's on Descriptive Statistics. I'll click OK. Now what I need to do is to enter the data. Actually, it's already there, but let me play like it's not there. Let me play like this whole thing is blank, actually. And what I'll do is now start filling it in. One way I can do this is I could click on this arrow here and get this, and then highlight my data. And in this case, I'm going to highlight the label, Tina's name, as well as the data. And then I click on this little red meter here, and the data's here. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it would be just to click. If you have XP or later, you can just, from here, just click here. And when you let go, it's filled in automatically. Another way I could have done it is I could have just entered the data. I could say, okay, I want from B1 all the way down to B17. Any of those ways will work. I do want to click Labels in first row so that it doesn't try and use Tina as a number. It wouldn't. It would tell me I have an error. But I do need to say Labels in first row. Normally this is set for New Worksheet Ply, but I want to click it to say Output Range. And then I need to click inside this box. Now that's very important, because if I hadn't clicked inside this box and I would have started typing, it would have typed in the last box I was in. So I need to click and get this flashing line in the box that I'm going to type before I start typing. This is asking, where do I want it to start putting the answer? In other words, where will be the top left corner of the answer? And I'm going to put that in D2. And I need to make sure that Summary Statistics is checked. So here, I'll click on Summary Statistics. Now I'll click, everything looks to be right. It says it's in columns. Everything seems to be right, so I'll press OK. And I get my data, but I get my data all squished up. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to Format, I'll go to Column, and I'll go AutoFit Selection. Now, this is a correct mean and median and mode, but there are some things that are not correct answers. They're actually correct answers to a different question, and that's the standard deviation and the variance. These are assuming that my data is samples, and it's giving me correct answers to sample data, but since I don't have sample data, I have the entire population, these are actually incorrect in our case. Now normally I'd just click on it and hit delete to get rid of those incorrect answers. But today I'm just going to highlight them, make them yellow, so that we see which answers they are. And normally I would ask you to put the correct answers, the corrected answers for population in this cell. But I'm going to put it in column F so that we can compare them. Let's start with the standard deviation. Here all I'll do to get the correct answers is I'll use my functions. I'll say equal sign, ST, DEV, and then I have to put a P on it to tell it it's for a population. Then I'll press a left parenthesis, and then I'll put in my data range. But in this case, it's important to realize the data range does not include B1 because that's got a name in it. Actually, I could put B1 because it's going to ignore a word, but I'm not going to. I'll just say B2 colon B17, and then I'll close, B17, and then I'll close my parenthesis and hit enter. It turns out the standard deviation based on a population is smaller than the standard deviation would have been if this would have just been a sample. In this case, the standard deviation based on a population is 2.037 instead of 2.104. So the variance, you know what, I should change this label too. This time it says sample variance, which is what it gave me, but I'm going to change it to population variance. So I'll highlight the word population by clicking here, pushing down my mouse button, moving my cursor over so that it's all darkened. Then I let go of my mouse button, and now I'll put POP, so I know it's a population variance, and I'll hit enter. That's just changing the label, not the numbers. Now I'll change the numbers. Normally I click here to change the numbers, but I'm going to put it here so we can compare it. All I do is I put the equal sign, VARP, the P at the end of it, so that it knows it's for population, left parenthesis, and now I could type in, or I could just go highlight. Let me just go highlight, and it types it in for me, and then I'll press my closing parenthesis and hit enter. And it turns out the population variance is 4.15, which is smaller than the 4.42, which it would have been if we would have based it only on a sample. Now, the only other one that's incorrect, left that's incorrect, is this number here. Now, normally, you won't really be using the standard error when you have the entire population. In this course, for most of what we do, we won't. But you might need to do it, and there are some legitimate times where you might want to do it. So let me show you how to do it. This time, we're going to not do it by formula. We're going to do it by using the existing answers down here and calculate it ourselves. Now, it turns out the standard error is the standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. In this case, the sample size is 16. That's our count. So what I'll put here is I'll click here, I'll put an equal sign, and I'll click on my standard deviation. Instead of typing it in, I just click in it. Now I'll press my divide button right there. And now I need the square root of my count. And the square root is SQRT, left parenthesis. Now I have to click on the number I want, this number. Then I'll close my parenthesis. And now when I hit enter, I'll end up getting 0.509. So again, the standard error will be a little bit less because it's based on all the information we have rather than on only a sample. So that is how you compute descriptive statistics using your data analysis tool and functions for the answers that we need to change because we're using an entire population rather than just a sample.